this is the Peter Pan story, roughly speaking. Peter Pan is this magical boy. Pan is the god of everything, roughly speaking, right? And so it's not an accident that he has the name Pan. And he's the boy that won't grow up. And he's magical. Well, that's because children are magical. They can be anything. They're nothing but potential. And Peter Pan doesn't want to give that up. Why? Well, he's got some adults around him, but the main adult is Captain Hook. Who the hell wants to grow up to be Captain Hook? First of all, you've got a hook. Second, you're a tyrant. And third, you're chased by the dragon of chaos with a clock in its stomach, right? The crocodile. It's already got a piece of you. Well, that's what happens when you get older. Time has already got a piece of you. And eventually, it's got a taste for you. And eventually, it's going to eat you. And so Hook is so traumatized by that he can't help but be a tyrant. And then Peter Pan looks at traumatized Hook and says, well, no, I'm not sacrificing my childhood for that. So that's fine, except he ends up king of Lost Boys. In Neverland, well, Neverland doesn't exist, and who the hell wants to be king of the Lost Boys? And he also sacrifices the possibility to have a real relationship with a woman, because that's Wendy, right? And she's kind of conservative, middle-class, London-dwelling girl. She wants to grow up and have kids and have a life. She accepts her mortality. She accepts her maturity. Peter Pan has to content himself with Tinkerbell. She doesn't even exist. She's like the fairy of porn. She doesn't exist. She's the substitute for the real thing. And so, but the dichotomy that you're talking about is very tricky because there's a sacrificial element in maturation, right? You have to sacrifice the pluripotentiality of childhood for the actuality of a frame. And the question is, well, why would you do that? Well, one reason is it happens to you whether you do it or not. You can either choose your damn limitation, or you can let it take you unaware when you're 30, or even worse, when you're 40. And then that is not a happy day. And I see people like this, and I think it's more and more common in our culture because people can put off maturity without suffering an immediate penalty. But all that happens is the penalty accrues, and then when it finally hits, it just wallops you. Because when you're 25, you could be an idiot. It's no problem. Even when you're out in a job search, it's like, well, you don't have any experience and you're kind of clueless. It's, yeah, you're young. It's no problem. That's what young people are like, but they're full of potential. Okay, well, now you're the same person at 30. It's like people aren't so thrilled about you at that point. It's like, what the hell have you been doing for the last 10 years? Well, I'm just as clueless as I was when I was 22. It's, yeah, but you're not 22. You're an old infant, right? And that's an ugly thing, an old infant. So part of the reason you choose your damn sacrifice, because the sacrifice is inevitable, but at least you get to choose it. And then there's something that's even more complex than that in some sense, is that the problem with being a child is that all you are is potential, and it's really low resolution. You could be anything, but you're not anything. So then you go and you adopt an apprenticeship, roughly speaking, and then you become something. And when you're something, that makes the world open up to you again. Like if you're a really good plumber, then you end up being far more than a plumber, right? You end up being a good employer. Not that plumbers, I'm not putting plumbers down. It's like more power to plumbers. They've saved more lives than doctors. So, hygiene, right? So, if you're a really good plumber, well, then you have some employees, you run a business, you train some other people, you enlarge their lives, you're kind of a pillar of the community, you have your family. Once you pass through that narrow training period, which narrows you and constricts you, with a bunch of new possibility at hand. And Jung talked about that. He thought that the proper path of development in the last half of life was to rediscover the child that you left behind as you were apprenticing. And so then you get to be something and regain that potential at the same time. Very, very smart. Well, he was very, very smart. So that's very wise. Very wise thing to know. So, yeah. Sacrifice. We'll talk more about that too. You get to pick your damn sacrifice.
Next time, just use the hole.
That's all. You don't get to not make one. So you're sacrificial whether you want to be or not. That's a good thing to know as well. So even though it's rather, it's a rough thing to figure out. But other questions? Okay.
That thing you just said about noticing it more and more people waiting for it.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Where do you think that comes from in terms of culture related?
I think universities facilitate it. Because you can go to university to not be something instead of going to university to be something. And it's Pleasure Island. And the price you pay for it, especially in the US, is debt. And you're enticed into it because the administrators can pick your pocket. So they rob your future self while allowing you to pretend that you have an identity, right? Very nasty. And you can't declare bankruptcy with your student loans in the US. It's indentured servitude. And it is precisely Pleasure Island. It's exactly that. And so tuition fees have shot way out of control. And part of the reason that universities don't make more demands on their students and let them get away with all the things they let them get away with is because they're basically, why the hell would you chase them out? They're $100,000 or more. So they can do whatever they want as long as you get to sell them to the salt mines. Right. So, and it's not the only reason, because the other thing that's happened is that the rate of technological transformation is so fast now, and the rate of turnover of things is that it is genuinely harder for people who are, say, 18 to 20. When I was a kid, roughly speaking, the kind of rough patch for life was probably 14 to 17, something like that.
Hey,
now I think it's 18 to 25, something like that. And I think the reason for that is that all the jobs that the bloody hippies complained about being doomed to in the 1960s have now disappeared. Their problem was, oh my God, I'm going to go have to work for a corporation and get a salary for the rest of my life. And then I'll just end up in it with a pension and that'll be my whole life. It's like, well, it seems like a lot better deal than an endless round of part-time Starbucks jobs. So, some of it is that. It's there's a space now in our culture that is lacking for people to make that transformation from adolescence into adulthood. And so it's the cost of that is forestalled. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
What's that? TD my spend.
Oh, fucking thing, man. Are you fucking kidding me? Sorry, guys. I hate when this shit does this.
I started to pay very careful attention to what I was saying. I don't know if that happened voluntarily or involuntarily, but I could feel a sort of split developing in my psyche. And the split, and I've actually had students tell me the same thing has happened to them after they've listened to some of the material that I've been describing to all of you. But I split into two, let's say. And one part was the old me that was talking a lot and that liked to argue and that liked ideas. And there was another part that was watching that part, like just with its eyes open and neutrally judging. And the part that was neutrally judging was watching the part that was talking and going, that isn't your idea. You don't really believe that. You don't really know what you're talking about. That isn't true. And I thought, that's really interesting. So now and that was happening to like 95% of what I was saying. And so then I didn't really know what to do. I thought, okay, this is strange. So maybe I've fragmented, and that's just not a good thing at all. I mean, it wasn't like I was hearing voices or anything like that. I mean, it wasn't like that. It was well, people have multiple parts. So then I had this weird conundrum. It was like, well, which of these two things are me? Is it the part that's listening and saying, no, that's rubbish, that's a lie, you're doing that to impress people, you're just trying to win the argument, Was that me, or was the part that was going about my normal verbal business me? And I didn't know, but I decided I would go with the critic. And then what I tried to do, what I learned to do, I think, was to stop saying things that made me weak. And now I'm still trying to do that, because I'm always feeling when I talk whether or not the words that I'm saying are either making me align or making me come apart. And I think I really do think alignment is the right way of conceptualizing it, because I think if you say things that are as true as you can say them, let's say, then they come out of the depths inside of you. Because we don't know where thoughts come from. We don't know how far down into your substructure the thoughts emerge. We don't know what processes of physiological alignment are necessary for you to speak from the core of your being. We don't understand any of that. We don't even conceptualize that, but I believe that you can feel that. And I learned some of that from reading Carl Rogers, by the way, who's a great clinician, because he talked about mental health in part as the coherence between the spiritual or the abstract and the physical, the two things are aligned. And there's a lot of idea of alignment in psychoanalytic and clinical thinking. But anyways, I decided that I would start practicing not saying things that would make me weak. And what happened was that I had to stop saying almost everything that I was saying. I would say 95% of it. It's a hell of a shock to wake up, and I mean, this was over a few months, but it's a hell of a shock to wake up and realize that you're mostly dead wood. It's a shock. And you might think, well, do you really want all of that to burn off? It's like, well, there's nothing left but a little husk, 5% of you. It's like, well, if that 5% is solid, then maybe that's exactly what you want to have happen. Well, so I told you that story as an elaboration of this line. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. It's a question worth asking. Just exactly what are your motives? Maybe they're purer than mine were, and it's certainly possible. I don't think that I'm naturally a particularly good person. I think I have to work at it very, very hard. And I don't necessarily think that everyone is like that. But some people are worse than that. And everyone's like that to some degree. So it's worth thinking about. Just how much trouble are you trying to cause? And the other thing you might think about is that if you're not doing something important by your own definition, because that's the game that we're playing, you get to define the terms, at least initially. Maybe you're prone to cause trouble just because you don't have anything better to do. Because at least trouble is more interesting than boring. That's something you learn if you read Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky knew that extraordinarily well. And so if you're not doing something, if you're not pushing yourself to the limits of your capacity, then you have plenty of leftover, willpower, energy, and resources to devote to causing interesting trouble. And so, also I would say this is also an archetypal scenario. God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. That's something to meditate on. It's not self-destructive, because what it is an attempt to, it's like the diagnosis of an illness. It's like if that does happen to be the case for you, or to some degree, maybe it's only 10% of you or something, or maybe it's 90%, well then, coming to terms with that is excellent, because then maybe you can stop doing it. And what would be the downside to that? You'd have to give up your resentment, obviously, and your hatred and all of that, and that's really annoying, because those emotions are they're easy to engage in, and they're engaging, and they have this feeling of self-righteousness with them, and that goes along with them. But you're not doing this in order to put yourself down. You're doing this in order to separate the wheat from the chaff, and to leave everything that you don't have to be behind.
Life, liberty,
All right, and hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to be back. First things first, I'll straight up just apologize. I told everybody I was going to be on September 11th to make a 9/11 episode, and then I did not come on and make a September 11th, September 11th episode. And, there's multiple reasons for that. And, I can straight up just tell you I was sick or I was busy or give you some stupid cop out to try to save face. And, so people don't blame me, where half the percentage of the people listening to me will probably buy and the other half will probably say, no, it's bullshit. And, whatever. So I'm not going to do that. I will, though, tell you that the focus of my show has changed from, I'm not saying I'm doing this intentionally or or it's been done unintentionally or anything like that. I'm just simply saying that my last few episodes were definitely more concentrated, I guess would be the word. More, specifically attacking or pronouncing or stating or opening and kind of breaking down truth, and I was just trying to hit on some of truth subjects such as I didn't talk about GMOs, but I kept mentioning them. I didn't really talk about chemtrails, but I kept mentioning them. I didn't really talk about world disasters, but I kept mentioning them big. Focusing on September 11th and what may and may not happen. And truth be told, that's not what I started this channel for, was to do that and expose that. But being that I keep telling everybody to stop, to not watch fear-based media, because it's the best thing for you. If you stop watching TV, that's great, but then you start just watching fear-based media, such as, doomsday predictions and chemtrails and the vaccinations and GMOs and the fluoride in your water, to the aliens and the reptilians and Illuminati stuff running the world, and then the pedophilia rings in Hollywood and how they're trying to subliminally do things to you, or, MK Ultra stuff, or, I even touched on lights in the house, how the other lights don't really, they trick your brain to staying awake, and how I did a little experiment with my own family by changing the lights and how the morale went up. And the simple fact that the only light in my house that I still have is an LED is the only light that gets left on, versus everybody turns off, not all the time, but for the majority of the time, my kids will turn off the other lights. I'll go in the basement, every light's off except for the hallway light. Walk throughout the house, and only the hallway light's the only light always left on. It's as if they don't even notice it. And even that could be switched, changed, and brought to a conspiracy kind of view and light and all that. So, and I realized I was doing that, and as I was recording, and doing my September 11th tribute / episode, which wasn't going to really be about the things, the phenomenons, the things that happened or occurred before and all that, because there was a couple things that happened to the Trade Center before, or different runs and different conspiratorial situations that happened prior to September 11th. And by prior, I don't mean just like a couple weeks before, I mean like years before. Things with the FBI doing bombs and all that. And, the one thing was only a couple people died and an alleged bombing, and no one even heard about it because it wasn't big enough to hear about. So they had to redo it. And from that to the things they release after. And I'm making all this, and I'm doing all this, and I'm realizing that the only thing I'm putting out here is fear. And as much as I was complaining about the fact that people were only focusing on the details, I was in fact doing the very thing I said that people shouldn't be doing, and I thought was appalling. So I kiboshed the whole thing, and I had to take almost a fucking week off, basically. I want to say the last time I recorded was on last weekend, thereabouts, maybe on the Monday or whatever, and today's Sunday, and I'm finally recording again. So I really had to do an introspection of my life. And during the midst of that, something popped up on my YouTube channel. I just want to take it one side step first. The thing I tried to mention in my last video, but I got sidetracked, was the fact that my son entered the cadets. The same night my son entered the cadets, or we signed him up for the cadets, a thing posted on my YouTube. I got a notification. I told you guys this on my YouTube, and it wasn't a channel I was subscribed to. I had no reason to get this notification, but it was from the U.S. Navy, basically, and it was in reference to the sky being different colors, and why we can see the northern lights, basically, as far down south as like Washington and even the state of Florida. And it was this scientific explanation that made no sense, by the way. I mean, they painted a picture and used scientific jargon, all that, to make it make sense. But if you actually know any little bits about the things they use to make their argument, it made absolutely no sense. But this popped up on my phone. And, part of me was like, well, is it one of those things where, the phone hears you talking about something, and then when you go to open up Google, it already has your search, or it has a commercial or something to that effect showing you that? Is it one of those things? Does that happen? Because I was at Sea Cadets here in my hometown, which is, the entry level for children to join military, basically, which I've stated that I'm not really a fan of my stepson doing. However, I'm not going to tell him no, and then he's just going to want to do it more. So I'd rather let him have the experience, and then hopefully it leads him down a path that he's supposed to be on. I mean, you have to learn the hard way to learn your mistakes. So instead of saying, no, I'm not allowing you to do this, and him just, as soon as he becomes 18 or whatever age, actually join for the real military, I'd rather let him have this experience now. And this way, if he does do that, well, at least he's as prepared as possibly can be for that, and it'll be what it is. And, maybe he'll be the type that goes in there and makes some big change, gets in a high ranking place, and actually bring it down from within. Who knows, right? Who knows? All I know is, as a parent, my biggest job, the best job I can do, is to not chase away the dragons or stop the dragons and the devils and the demons from coming to my children, because you cannot stop your children from seeing the devils and the demons and the dragons. You have to prepare them to know how to slay or banish or exercise, and I mean that in an exorcist kind of way, these demons, push them away in that sense. They have to be ready and prepared to be able to fight their own battles, and not me continuously fight the battles for them and chase away the evil. And this way, whenever I'm not around, whether it be death or just at work the one day, and they're faced with a demon or a devil or a dragon, I'm not there to help them, and so they're absolutely unprepared. And then they get hurt, tormented, traumatized by this for the rest of their life. Whether it's something as simple as, dealing with a bully at school, which I'm not saying is simple by any means, it can be very traumatic, or as complicated as dealing with somebody who's a pedophile. Because my town is a very small town, and pedophiles here in Canada tend to get released to smaller towns, where they're not like a countryside. They're a little more urbanized, because they have to be closer to a local unemployment / government / welfare establishment to get their check. So it has to be somewhere where it has that, but it's a smaller population, so you're not releasing this monster around too many kids. And that's one of the justifications, and to me it's a stupid justification, but it is what it is. I'm out here preaching everybody's a good person, but we do have monsters in the reality. So this is kind of my segue for what I'm going to talk about here today. But anyways, so whether it be that kind of dragon they have to face with, simple exercises with your kids, playing rough with them, basically, holding your child down and see if they can get up off you, and not in a harmful way. You're sitting on their back or something like that. You're not putting your full weight on it, right? But you're trying to see if they can get out. Because what is a pedophile going to do to your child? Well, they're going to hold them down and force themselves on them. If your child, they're going to seek out a child that is, who is passive, not aggressive. They're going to seek out a child that is whatever, who's not going to say much, who can be easily tricked, as naive as kids, all kids can be. There are some that are more naive than others. And if you have a naive child, well, your job shouldn't be to just chase away things. I mean, if there's somebody at your door or near your house and you think there's whatever, then yeah, you're not just going to openly expose your child to them and all that. You're going to kick that fucker off your lot and tell them, there's a serious danger of coming around here, or secretly call the police and say, I suspect this person is this, and whatever the case is. So I'm not saying not to do that, but I'm saying when you're playing with your children, you should definitely organize and have a part of that time being productive. And it doesn't have to be sitting them down and telling them about the dangers, because that's not going to do very much. You have to show them the danger. You have to pretend and take on that role yourself of that person who is going to harm your child. And by doing that, you see how prepared your child is. And if your child doesn't have any way of being able to get you off, if you're on top of them, holding them down, that's like probably the second step. The first step would be how to recognize when someone is being a fake nice person, basically trying to get something out of them. And there are definitely things you can look up and search up, and I can refer to books and people that you should read to learn how to do this, because this is exactly what I do with my children. Whether I'm playing catch with them, or I'm playing tag with them, or hide and seek, or whatever the case is. Hide and seek is a great example to play a game like that, where they're hiding somewhere in the house and you are the predator going to try to find them, basically, and how to hide as best as possible, and what to do when you're found and stuff like that. But anyways, if anybody wants that information, maybe I'll put in the description. Maybe I'll just let you send me an email and I can send you the books, because I have them here on my computer and on my new phone. But that's besides the point. Point is, you got to teach your kids. You got to get them prepared for those things. Guys, think about how you were the first time you met face to face with the first real evil thing you had to deal with, whether it was just seeing something bad happen to somebody else, or it actually happened to you. And you can think about how prepared or unprepared you were. So maybe you were lucky and you got prepared at a young age, and maybe that was through a traumatic experience or not. Point is, we learn the hard way. And the harder we learn is direct proportion to the mistakes we made, to the lack of mistakes that we may have made, to learn those previous hard lessons to prepare us for even the harder lessons. What I'm trying to say is, in probably a more complicated and smart sounding way, which I got to work on as well, trying to sound too smart and make no sense whatsoever. But what I'm trying to say is, if you weren't prepared for these hard lessons, then you learned really, really hard, and you might have been distraught from it, and it might be completely, unbelievably traumatized by these things. And unfortunately, society plays the victim role very well. We are taught to play the victim role very well. We are taught to either exploit people that are playing the victim, and or when you are a victim, or you can even pretend to be a victim and exploit that to your benefit, which can work sometimes in your favor, of course. All things can, but will only last for a certain amount of time, and you'll either be exposed, or you will literally bring to you with your mind power and all that, because you're thinking or pretending something happened to you, and you're saying it so often as in an affirmation, and then you literally bring that specific situation to you by always telling the universe, God, whatever you want to believe in, a goddess, all there is, that these traumatic things actually happen to you. You are acting as if this happened to you, and then boom, it happens to you. That's not much different than what I teach on this channel, or why I point people to the right teachers to teach it on this channel. The law of attraction literally states to act as if the thing you want has already happened, and be so thankful for it and grateful for it. So if you're playing the victim and pretending something traumatic happened to you to get your boss to not penalize you for missing days, or for whatever the case is, and you're doing this over and over and over again, well, why, especially if you're a person who's studying magic, occult stuff, and the transformation arts, or just the law of attraction and new age stuff, what makes you think that by lying and pretending these things have happened to you, and then you get other people's minds involved, and you let their mind actually believing that this thing happened to you, and then in their head they're picturing you going through this traumatic thing? Do you really think that's not going to actually bring it to you? Because 100% in my mind, you are making your magic more powerful. I have multiple episodes about putting a sigil up in your house to get your family's mind in line with your magic. And that means if you want X amount of dollars to come in, you make a sigil saying you've received X amount of dollars. I am so grateful that I received $10,000. And you make that picture, you put it up, you charge it. You might even do the whole jerk off method and get that into your subconscious mind. But by having it up in plain sight in people's subconscious mind, seeing that over and over and over and over and over again, and you acting as if it's real, our subconscious minds are all linked. Well, then it will become real in their mind, even though they don't know what they're seeing, even though they don't know what that means. If they don't know what it means, it makes it that much more powerful. And that's one of the things I don't focus on enough, but it's one of those things that I don't want people to go out there thinking the McDonald's M is trying to make them fat and kill them. But we don't know what was programmed into that McDonald's M. It is a sigil. We don't know what's programmed in all these symbols that we look at. You can define or retrain these things to not affect you, but that would take a hell of a lot of time to go through everything you see in your daily life, going from point A to point B, and all the sigils and symbols you see, and reprogramming them. So a better alternative is to just train your mind to not be at the will of these symbols, specifically speaking. But point I'm trying to get at is, you're doing magic. This is why I don't like to call it magic. And the person I'm going to put on here, I'm sure people have already heard of and watched. He's a hell of a guy. And he talks about mythologies, Egyptian mythology, myth. He talks about the gods there. But he is a psychologist or psychiatrist. I think it's a psychologist. He helps people get over the phobias and their fears. He helps people not work as much. He helps people all the time. And he's an amazing man. So if you're one of those people that can't afford a psychologist or psychiatrist, and you're one of those people that, I was one before. I saw one, but and then I got into magic, there's a lot of, especially in the New Age, things tell you need to go see a psychiatrist. The book I recommended, that was recommended to me by Frederick Xavier, that he recommends to everybody to start, Kabbalah and the Great Work of Self-Transformation. It's directly one of the things in that book tells you to go see a psychiatrist and to have a professional assessment done on your psyche, basically seeing if you are, because the magic, occult, and this area of study, of way of life, community, whatever you want to call what we're doing here, all the various people talking about this stuff, via YouTube, through books, through TV channels, whatever, it attracts people. And some of the people it attracts are people that are just stuck between a rock and a hard place or don't know what to do. They know something is wrong and they want to change their life. And that was me. I got attracted to it because I didn't want to work anymore at the place I was working. I wanted to find a meaningful job. And I also had some depression about leaving the only child I got to stay home with out of the 4 children that I have, 2 being stepchildren, but I met them at a very young age. But out of the 4 children I only got to stay home with my last child, and not even from birth. I mean, I got her at 5 months, and I'm still home with her today. And magic has allowed me to do that. And that's one of the reasons that I came on here, because I believe more people have to do that. There is something very profound and helpful and important about a parent, normally the mother, because the mother has that bond, and the mother is more a maternal person and more probably natural at the parental role, and you'll probably hear that later. But they're designed for it better than men. They're designed to protect that child from when they realize that child is inside them, being created from a small fetus, whatever you want to call it, whatever the beginning stages are. They're made to protect that. And we have movies that explain mood swings and all this about women, but it's not so much mood swings as they are that mother cat, that mother animal, and there's nothing more ferocious than a mother protecting their children. So you take this mother and you put her in a business setting where she's, just left her child at home and has to go back to work, and she has to deal with all of these men who are very territorial or don't want a woman to work with them, or even if they're just being men. Men can be men, men can be dicks, men can be nice, men can be whatever. I don't want to generalize, but point is, you got this maternal mother who's got her maternal instincts on all the time, and she maybe can't shut them off, and then she is around all these fucking men acting like babies or just being whatever, and she's going to lash out, and of course the men are going to gang up on her and say she's being irrational, and she'll get in trouble, when really she was designed to protect her child. And if her child's not there to be protected, well, then there's something else going on. But point is, women are more designed for that, but it didn't matter. For me, I have more negative than positive elements in my chart. My planets are more placed in negative settings than they are in the positive settings, are the positive attributes in my birth chart. So therefore I am a male. I'm a straight heterosexual male, but I've got a lot of female energies in my chart, more water and earth than anything. And I lack in fire and I lack in air. My birth sign is a Taurus. My sun sign, my ascendant sign is Taurus. And the next sign after Taurus is the air sign Gemini. But then I have Venus in the moon and the first male sign. I got two female signs. Boom, right there. Earth and water. You know what I mean? So, and that's very much my chart, how it keeps going around. So when I stayed home with my daughter, well, I definitely developed a type of I wouldn't say phobia, but anxiety whenever I had to go back to work. So anyway, sorry, I had to split up the recordings. I had to deal with my daughters who just came in the house when I'm talking about female energy. But anyways, so the point I was hitting at there was that it's very important for a parent in general to stay home with the children, at least until they go to school, which our schooling system isn't really created or great for a child anyways, but that is the norm, and we kind of have to go with the norm until we find a new norm that works and that people can all jump on and the majority chooses the new norm, and then we can change our structure. But until that happens, at least being home with your child until the age of 4 or before 4, however it works out for you, is very lucky and is a blessing, and is actually very good for your child. And you can use the whole line of, well, it's good for the child to socialize before they go to school, and be around kids, and that's true to a certain extent, for sure, 100%, depending on how your child's built. And how much exposure she had before. But to me, there's more important things than that. And I'm not saying if you can't do that, it's bad and you should do that. I'm not saying that at all. Everybody has to work within their limitations. In fact, limitation is very important, because without limitation, and it's not always a bad thing, limitation, but without limitation, you're not going to have a successful or happy life. Once you define your limitation, then you can work inside that limitation and see how far you can go, and see if you can even go beyond those limitations. And then you have to set new limitations and continuously do that. You set a limitation and you exceed it, and then you set a limitation and then you exceed it, and that gives you fulfillment and happiness in life. That's why finding your passion is such a good thing, because you are, in a manner of speaking, finding a certain limitation that appeals to you. Okay, I'd like to do this, but I haven't done it. I am good at it, or used to be good at it, but I don't have the discipline to just do that now, and I have to make money. Well, you just set a new limitation saying, I'm not going to just do a job to make money and live a safe life and conform. I am now going to do this just because it makes me happy. And instead of having the freedom and the security that the money brings me, but being tired and unenjoyable when I get home and can't even enjoy my kids, I am not going to think about the money and the bills and the debt. I'm just going to do what I love. And, along the way, I will actively give, a certain portion of my day, whether it's an hour a day, a couple hours a day, or just 20 minutes a day, looking in areas of how I can make money doing this. Whether it is, there's a job out there that allows you to do a certain percentage of what your passion is, or it's actually selling your passion, or whatever the case may be. But you're going to focus on doing your passion just to do it, and then you're going to allow opportunities to present themselves to you, and you're actively going to look for it. That's the action in magic. When you do a spell, there has to be a certain percentage after you do the spell of action towards what your spell is. Set it and forget it is one of the main rules, but the same people that say set it and forget it tell you there has to be some action in there, and your ritual is part of that action. And that's why you can manifest an orange ball, using Frederick Xavier as an example. You can manifest an orange ball in your yard very quickly because you don't give two fucks about it, and all you need for something that small and insignificant is a ritual. But it's and I don't mean insignificant as it's not important, because that certainly is very important, because it proves to your psyche, to your mind, to your brain, to yourself, to your ego, that magic is real. Once you do that and you get that result, it's something you can refer to whenever you're down in the dumps and you don't think magic is working. Well, of course it works, because you did the sigil, the orange ball, and it appeared in your yard. I didn't even completely do that. All I did was listen to Frederick Xavier almost exclusively for probably a couple months. And I made the sigil down on my book. And then I was going to transfer it to a piece of paper and all that later. I never charged it, never did anything. And I had the fucking thing appear to me. So was it because I did the sigil, or is it because I heard it happen? Or because it was reaffirmed in my head that it's going to happen because of that? Because it told my mind that, well, because you drew the sigil, it has no choice but to happen. It doesn't matter. Point is, it happened. And I can always refer to that to any time someone tells me what I'm doing isn't real or not. But anyways, back to the subject. Being at home with a child is very important, was what I was talking about, which isn't the subject for today, but it's important. And I got to do that. And, now she's going to be going off to school, not this year, but next year. And it's time for me to, do something more steadily than just do ritual magic to stay home. But the reason I started this channel was because I believe that people should know this, should know that it's possible to do this. Because everything that's happened to me during this time, these last 3 years of being home with my daughter and using magic to facilitate the money to continue to stay home, is no different than if I would have worked a regular job. And what I mean by that is, I could have worked a regular job and I would have been spending more money than I do now. All right. But instead, I manifested the 10 grand 4 times, which helped pay for bills and renovations and a whole bunch of things. I got the extra car, I got the mortgage to work out all these things while being off. But the more money you make, the more you spend. And while being on a tighter budget, we still accumulated the same amount of bills. We still had the same amount of debt to money going out. You know, we have a certain amount of money that goes and pays all these bills. We have a certain amount of debt that's always maintained by giving it a little bit and not letting it grow to a certain point. And we have a certain amount of money we spend on things that we probably shouldn't spend. So while staying home and not making more money, what happened was we stopped spending as stupidly as we used to when we both had a job, because we always knew there was a check coming in. All right, we only had the one big check, and then we had my EI and all that. But I was manifesting at the same time for the extras and all that. But because of knowing that I was going to run out, and knowing that it wasn't as much as when I worked at my job at $20 some an hour, and my wife doing almost $30 an hour, you know, we could spend a lot of money and never worry about it, because there was always a check coming in, and we got credit out the wazoo. Well, this time you can't really get credit on EI to do those things. So that's where the magic came in. My magic was like giving me a credit card for 10 grand, except I never had to pay back the interest and all that shit. So it was amazing. But it stopped us from spending stupidly. But at the same token, some of those debts that we were supposed to pay, that we used to shoot money at just to keep them happy, put it right there on the counter. I'll deal with it in a second, okay? Thank you, boo. Some of the debt we used to shoot money at, we were still shooting money at it, but not as much. And there were certain ones we let go. But in that experience, it forced me to look at different things of the law and contract law and stuff like that. And I actually got these people to stop bugging me, to the point where, one, I'm happy to report, I told you guys a long time ago I was going to find out about one. There's probably about three or four things, I want to say four, that are trying to affect my credit right now. But they haven't affected my credit. I've also did a spell so my credit wouldn't get worse. It would maintain or get better, but I haven't seen it get better, but I have seen it maintain. It's staying at the same thing when I had 4 people trying to put me into a collections for a payday loan that we took out before, whenever people thought I was still employed, and I wasn't. Not really kosher, but something that I'm not going to blame anybody. But anyways, something we did that obviously we regret. But anyways, I'm happy to report that one of them is completely gone. There's no trace of it. In fact, it's called Mogo. It's an online payday loan place, and they actually sent me things via email asking me if I wanted to take out another loan. So I thought that was a trick, because they were one of the ones that I had them send me the original, my original copy of my contract. And from there, I determined that they hadn't said it was a consumer purchase anywhere on this. And there's multiple things I used to invalidate, I guess, or render the contract as null and void, and that I don't owe them any money. So I sent them a notice saying that they were in breach of certain criteria, and the consumer purchase was one of the ones I learned from Eternally Aware, a guy I put on here a long time ago, a Canadian guy, but through the Mark Hollywood and Irene Gavin Horse, Max Egan, Santos Bonacci, I found more criteria I was able to claim that they were in breach of. And I sent that all to them, and I gave them so many days to respond. If they didn't respond, that they would have to no longer bug me, call me, or threaten to put me in the credit bureau or sell it to another credit agency, because at this point they had sold it to a creditor, but once again it hadn't affected my credit, which is very strange, because normally once you sell it to a creditor, it affects your credit like instantly. I think, anyways, I could be wrong about that, but that is my understanding of that process. Once it goes to a collections agency, that's what I meant by creditor, collections agency, it affects your credit. And that hadn't happened. And I had people calling me, and I would never tell them I was Corey LeBlanc on the phone. I would talk about what was going on, and they would continually try to get me to say my name was Corey LeBlanc, and if I wasn't him, how come I knew how much details about the account, and so on and so forth, things like that. Give me 1 second. I gotta give my daughter her bottle. Here's Bubba. See if you'll be ready soon. Here's Bubba. Ooh. No, hold it, man. Don't drink all of it. Ooh, I'm sick. Don't drink all of it. Sorry about that. Alright, sorry about that. I just didn't want to pause the whole recording and have to restart. But anyways, so I would talk about it, and they would basically tell me they couldn't give me certain information. And I kept telling them the same thing that you would hear on those shows that I put on here, that I'm the administrator for the account. Therefore, you can talk to me about it. And, certain one of them would go into a few more details with me, but they'd eventually be told by somebody else or whatever they couldn't talk about it. So I told them that there was a notice sent to Mogo, the people I actually dealt with, and that by selling it to you guys, they were selling a consumer purchase that wasn't on any of my contract, and I could send them a copy of the contract, and they said, no, we have a copy of the contract. So I tell them, well, look on the contract. Does it say anywhere on there that this is a consumer purchase? And they would say, well, we're not really going to look at it. But as far as we know, no, none of these copies have that on there. And I'm like, okay, so just because none of these things have it, yet it's stated in, I forget what thing, what exactly part of it, but in the Charter, Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and different things that talk about contract law, it states in there that you cannot legally bind somebody to a consumer purchase, basically meaning they sold me money, which was just selling me debt, but they actually didn't sell me any money at all, but they told me they gave me money, and from there I spent that money and I never paid them back the money, and I'm liable to pay them back the money because I promised I would. And then I'm fighting, one of the reasons I'm fighting was because it was never marked that this was this, and then they illegally sold that to a collections agency. So now the collection agency, if they don't cease and desist attacking me, calling me and telling me I need to pay them, when my initial agreement is with Mogo and not them, that they are actually taking on that. So not only am I'm going after Mogo, if they don't stop, I'm actually going to go after them, and they're going to have to take on that burden. I did this with all four of these companies, by the way, but this is the one that actually stopped. I think I got through to, and so I need to go back and look at the other ones and probably do this process with them. But so I told them I would send them the same thing. And they ended up ending the call and with very abruptly, and nothing was really resolved. But like I said, I sent that to Mogo, and I never actually sent it to that collection agency. And the collection agency stopped. They stopped mailing me stuff, stopped sending me stuff via email, stopped everything. Mogo also stopped, and they never responded. Now, technically, I should have had that notarized by somebody, having a third party sign it and all that, and I didn't do that. So if you are going to do this and you do the same way I did without actually doing that part, understand that they may be able to just shoot it in the garbage and it doesn't mean shit. So technically that's supposed to be signed by, I think criminal stuff you can get the police officers, or you'd have to go back to my videos or check out Max Egan or Mark Hollywood or on American Freedom Radio where they talk about how to do this properly. But it's the same process as whenever you're trying to claim that you're no longer a citizen, you're not that all capitals name on all your mail and on the birth certificate and all that, whenever you get your actual live birth certificate, and not the death one or the not foster home, but the what's the name? The adopted child, basically, birth certificate. The same process. You have to do this with these companies as well, I think, anyways. That's how I understood it. However, I didn't do that because, I skipped a step and all that. And maybe it's just because I wasn't educated, or, I thought it was good enough. And because they never responded, I kept that. I made copies of it, whatever. And, I can still go get it signed and all that and resend it to them if I have to. So I will do that if it comes time. But once I went into that thinking that email they sent me was a trick, asking me to, because I've done that before as well. I did a magic ritual saying I was going to get rid of all my debt and all this. And, a couple of weeks later, I had an email from, I don't think this was Mogo, I think this was Money Mart at the time, or Cash for You. And when I went on there, it's like a virtual person on there, not a real person, asking questions. And I said, yeah, you need more information for you to give me a loan, because this actually was a trick this time. But I wasn't sure if maybe my magic worked or not. And this is one of these examples of magic not working, or not working right away. Because technically now I actually do. I instead of using magic for this, I went down the other road of doing the shit I learned. So I put action behind that magic I did, and then I was able to get rid of this one piece of debt. Now you can say that's not all your debt, Corey, so really it didn't work. But technically, if you look at the details and the way I worded it, it was very vague. So it doesn't mean all my debt, and I only put forth action. Well, I put forth action to all of it, but this is the only one I really saw through. But anyways, that's besides the point. So when I contacted them, they said, okay, we need to get a customer service representative to talk to you. And when they came on, they basically said, well, you can't get a loan. You owe us money. And, once you pay that money, then, yeah, we'd be happy to work with you. And I said, well, will the loan be this big if I pay you off? Because there's no use in paying you off with the money that I have, unless it's a bigger loan coming back to me, which obviously wouldn't make sense either, put myself in more debt. But it was just a question asked, and she said, well, no, there's no way we can lend you that much. You're a high risk and all that. So click, hung the fucking phone up on her. But when I did this with Mogo, they took all my details, and they're waiting for the next step to fall through. No one ever called me, and they told me they could lend me so much. And once again, click. Oh, well, I didn't hang up the phone because this was all online, but no one called me, and they were willing to give me one. And, I just clicked off and said, no, I'm not going down that fucking rabbit hole. But the point is, I was able to stop and to cease the collections and the MOGO to the point where MOGO was ready to loan me again. It was a very small loan, and I could have totally paid it back if I got it. And, part of me wanted to do it, to have that gratification, get that money right away. But I was able to not do it. I learned a lesson. I learned a very valuable lesson. And I put the action towards the fucking magic, and that's kind of the point. The more difficult, the more complicated your magic is, your steps of action have to be in line with that, You can't just say, I want to be a fucking millionaire through owning my own business and not actually go get a business license, If you don't know what business or what you want to do with your life, but that's one of your goals, that's fine. I'm not saying that's bad magic or anything like that. I'd say you should have a more clear goal or a more clear idea, or make your magic more to the point, to something, if you want to have a career that's surrounded around your passion, well, first thing you have to do is find your passion. So you would have to cast, or at least meditate on, what do I like doing? What is something I could do? What is my passion? And then from there, ask the questions like, how can I make money off of this? And then, you do that kind of magic. You do the first magic for finding your passion, or having your passion be revealed to you through your daily life and all that. Via people telling you you're good at something, or being you just finding something you like doing. And then from there, your next magic would be, how can I make a job of this, or at least meditating on that. And then if the answers come to you, if they don't, then you cast for it. And then from there, you grow that to the next step. Okay, I want to have a business. I want to be able to make a home business. And then, your step of action for that could be going to get a business license, which is very beneficial, because if you have a business license, even if you don't have a business, if you do your income tax, if you're one of the type of people that still pay taxes and you do income tax, you can claim a big percentage of everything from groceries to gas to all this. It's worth $130 for the business license. And you can ask me, how do I know? It's because I have one. I set this up a long time ago. It was by chance. Once again, because the type of business I was going into was an insurance. Well, not insurance selling business, but that was one of the main criteria. But it was a step above a realtor. A realtor would kind of come to me. I'd be kind of like a realtor's handler, but we also sold individual things like people insurance and things like that, like home insurance, auto insurance, and just insurance on your life, basically, and stuff like that. And I never went through with it. I know I did the schooling, I did the courses, but first part was to legally sell something for this company. It was as if they were like subcontractors, and I had to have a business. And I still renew that bitch every year, because I can claim, on top of my kids and my job and all this, I can claim so much gas, so much groceries, so much amenities. Because if it's a home business, then anything that comes into the home that I can say is part of my business, being food, being furniture, being, cleaning products to clean my fucking office, being computer parts, I can claim all that. And I pay for it up front, but then at the end of the year, it's more knocked off my income tax and more that comes back to me. And so it's not only beneficial just to have that step of action if you're trying to have a home business, and find your passion, use your passion towards that, but it's also beneficial to have that for your income tax purposes, at least here in Canada, and I'm pretty sure the States is the same. A cab driver has that, and they can claim all their gas. That's why they don't mind driving around all day and leaving the clock running and shit like that, and leaving the car on, because they just claim it all. And they keep all the receipts from their gas. That's why the gas people will give you a receipt. Most people don't take a receipt, but they'll give you one. It's because you can claim it. A regular person can claim this as well under a different thing on their income tax, but they don't have as much as if you have a business. You can claim a hell of a lot more. But anyways, the overarching point of all this came from the stay-at-home dad thing, and that could technically be a business too. You can just be babysitting or whatever the case is. But I'm so far off topic, it's unbelievable. But that's the point. This is the stuff I want to focus on more. It's actually giving people things that help them. And the reason I didn't do the 9/11 episode was because I was focusing on more things that would just divide us. Because even though I'm saying out loud that I think it's foolish that we're focusing on the details, I think it's foolish that people died, if they died. I mean, I have no proof of that, but as far as, what the media, the government, everybody has released, there has been casualties. Even though they found the people from the plane still alive, I don't think they found certain people that were supposed to be dead in the towers still alive. And, I just say that because there's no way of knowing. If I wasn't there, if I didn't see it for myself, people could tell me, yeah, this person died, show me a picture, show me a birth certificate, show me proof that they're actually alive. But all that can be manufactured too. I'm a very, very a naive person, to the point where I won't believe things that are right in my face telling me it's true. You know what I mean? I'm the opposite of that naive, and that's because I used to be very naive. And this is actually coming towards what I want to speak about here today. It's actually coming together quite nice, but to stop being naive, the only way to stop being naive is to go to the opposite end of the scale. It's kind of the as above, so below version of, if you're scared, if you have a phobia of something, well, you have to face that fear. You have to go right to the opposite polarity of that. You know what I mean? Like I said, when people are trying to wake up people, everybody is so consumed by their day-to-day life and have been told that, there's a God in heaven and all this, but, all the other planets out there, if you believe there's alien life, I mean, we're just a speck among all those stars, and space is so big and you're so unimportant. So people have believed that for so long, and they're so unimportant, they just go along with the show and hope that the afterlife is better and think they're insignificant. And so what's the opposite of telling people that, there's no such thing as life on other planets and we are insignificant? Let's go in the whole opposite route. It's saying there is life on other planets. There is reptilian aliens and good aliens out there. You got good and bad. It's the same story as God and the devil and all that, but just a different context. If people don't want to believe in God and the devil anymore, we'll just change it to something that's more that people have seen more. We have all these movies about aliens over and over again. So people already have their subconscious tricked that there could be aliens out there. Therefore, if we release that there's reptilian aliens, that, your reptile mind, we have a part of our brain, it's called the reptilian brain, which is where the ego is. And everybody says ego's bad, you got to get rid of the ego, So then we start saying that reptilians are bad. Reptilians, we got to get rid of the reptilians. They've been oppressing us for years and years and years. Well, it's another as above, so below of the part of the mind you're supposed to get rid of whenever you do this transformation thing. It's all related. It's all the fucking same. But that's why people connect to it. You can sit back and say it's fucking crazy. And, I personally think it is crazy to believe that the queen is a reptilian, even though there are some pictures out there that really paint the picture that her, the Pope, all these people, they look almost reptilian. But, I mean, get some shitty Photoshop software, put it on your computer, and you'd be amazed of what you could do with that. So before you go believing wholeheartedly in these pictures, that's a nice experiment I'd tell you to do. And it all comes back to the same point. The way to get these people to believe that they are important is to take them out of the bullshit they were fed, the lie they were fed that they are unimportant and they are just a speck among the cosmos and there are so many more important things than them. Is to tell them that they are super important and super powerful and can do anything, and that there is life on other planets, and these people on other planets want to kill you and are trying to kill you 24/7 through all these different ways. And that's the opposite polarity that'll wake you up. So it's the same concept. If you are afraid of something, well, you get taken right to what you're afraid of. You put a spider in your arm, afraid of spiders. If you're afraid of elevators, you get in that fucking elevator, or you get as close as you can to it. And you'll hear this example later from the guy I'm speaking of that I'm going to be playing here, which is very important. And he's a psychiatrist. So if you have any issues, well, at least getting free examples and listening to a psychiatrist online through YouTube is better than not listening to one at all. And you can learn things. And if you study some of the books he mentions, and people like Carl-Jung and Freud and all these different guys that I've read, and it's very hard to read Jung, but he gives you examples of people that worked under Jung who are a good introduction into Jung stuff, because Jung is very hard to read. I don't understand half the shit, but point is, he teaches that that's what he does, and part of his psychiatric work or psychiatrist work is to get the person, okay, well, how close can you get to the elevator? And he brings them, asks them 9 feet, 5 feet, and they said, no, 4 feet is too close to that elevator. So he goes 4.5 feet away from that elevator with that person, and you stare at it. with the door open, looking actually inside the elevator, or with the doors open where the elevator is going up and down. And if you get that person right to the door and you see them staring at the elevator, let's say they're on the first floor and the elevator is on the 13th floor, let's use that number, even though there's no 13th floor in an elevator for whatever reason. That's a whole other episode, by the way. But they stare at that elevator and no, it's still up there. No, it's still up there. Yeah, it's still up there, to the point where they get bored and they realize the elevator is safe. And they're so bored of it that you can't be scared of something that's boring. If you actually watch that spider, if you put a spider in front of you, if you're scared of spiders, put a spider in front of you, and you go down close enough. If you could bear it, and you stared at that spider wouldn't move because it's more afraid of you than anything else. And as soon as it perceives you to not be paying attention to anymore, it's going to go the opposite way. So even if you had a camera on that spider the whole time to watch that spider, what it was doing, if you had something there that could scare it, you would literally get bored of that spider, and there'd be no reason to be fearful of that spider. It's the same for every fear. Now, every fear can't be broken down like that, but for the most part, you probably can break some aspect down of it and find something that's similar to what you're afraid of and work with that and get you closer to that. So anyways, but the main reason I kind of forgot what my main train of thought was. I was going on there. I guess it was the comparison for your fears and how to conquer your fears. Oh yeah, because I was naive. So the way to not be naive is to be skeptical of everything, which is not a bad way to be, especially in our day and age. Because if you believe in stuff wholeheartedly, or you just jump in, arms wide open, well, then you're going to be taken as a fool. You're going to get the fool's journey. You're going to be on the fool's journey. And you have to be on the fool's journey to a certain extent to become illuminated. But the point is, you have to go to the opposite extreme to overcome anything. Or if you don't, it's the same thing I was talking about the children. If you want to protect your child against the demons and the devils and the dragons and the pedophiles or whatever the case may be, you have to put yourself in that role and test them almost. The only way to teach your child to not be afraid or how to deal with that circumstance is to actually make them deal with that circumstance in a controlled environment or prepare them for it. Because you can push all those fuckers away. You can move to a remote desert island, whatever, and something will still come for them. You're on a remote island, well then, there's water, they're gonna drown or something like that. Or there's gonna be storms or a fucking hurricane, tidal wave, whatever, something's gonna wipe you out. Point is, you cannot protect somebody from everything. You can only prepare them for as much as you possibly have went through yourself, whatever experience you have. So if you're trying to become a transformed, enlightened being, well, you have to go through this shit. That's why I said one of my earliest episodes, whenever you're going through this process, you're basically telling whatever you believe in, God, universe, whatever, which probably will change along your journey, but you're telling whatever is in charge of this thing we Westerners call karma. You're telling them that you're ready for all your life lessons, your karma to come back to you. And you want to do this faster because you want to transform. You don't want to be 65 and finally realize the meaning of life on your deathbed the night before you're about to die. You want to learn it now so you can transcend all that crap. Because, even after this process, even after you get let's say a Kundalini awakening or just a regular awakening or whatever the case may be, people think it's a one and done. And once they're done, their awakening, their Kundalini, whatever, shit's just perfect all the time and you're always right and everybody else is wrong. And they get self-righteous on people and all that. And that's no different than a born-again Christian or even a Christian who just fully believes that, every time I go, I say my sins and I'm always saved and all that. And everybody else who isn't saved by Jesus, who doesn't have the Holy Spirit, is going to die. So they're going to go around telling people they need to do this and force the shit onto people and be all high and mighty, be all self-righteous when, they're just accumulating more emotional blocks and other types of mental and physical and sexual blocks. And it's making them crabby and all this shit. Well, it's the same thing, same process that happens within New Age or even different magical witchcraft, ceremony magicians. Any regiment, I would say, would have this in it. That's why you see interfaction fightings. And I do believe wholeheartedly that you can chop that up to a lot of infiltration from people, whether they are Catholic or of a different religion or just haters, because, they don't have the discipline to do it themselves. And they just want to make everybody who's in it miserable or believe them when they say it's not real or accurate. But point is, that's what happens. These people think they're enlightened beings And then they go around saying that their experience is the only one to believe in, and that they know what they're talking about because of the Kundalini awakening. But I see that a lot, and some people I actually like listening to, say stuff like that, like talk about how they went through their Kundalini awakening early, or they did it before others, or sometimes it takes people years and years and years, and they go through decades or lifetimes of doing said Kundalini awakening or any awakening really, and and these people do teach, and they do give you information that's good, and they draw on their experience. When they draw on their experience of what happened around their actual awakening, because I do believe these people have had these experiences, but the sheer fact that they think it's a one and done is it's been taught by somebody who may not have known themselves, but eventually somewhere down the line it has been either corrupted or just not analyzed correctly, and people seem to think that you can have this process done to you once and boom, you're enlightened. But in my opinion and in my personal experience, okay, because I can't tell you if it was a Kundalini awakening or just a regular awakening. If I go by the New Age information, I 100% had a Kundalini awakening because I had all the sensations and all these things happen to me around a similar period of time, and it was right after something traumatic happened to me. And that's the guidelines on these New Age channels and sites and different things like that. And after I've had certain things that I can do that I couldn't do before, and I can still do these things, but they're not as powerful as they were when I was going through the awakening, which is another thing I was taught. Once your Kundalini awakening is done, then the powers you've got, sometimes you retain them, sometimes you can't do them at all anymore. But it doesn't matter because you're now awakened and shit like that. And which is true to a certain extent. That's what happened to me. There's certain things I can still do now. It's not as powerful. And just like during the awakening process, or the Kundalini, whatever you want to call it, Kundalini Shakti, I think is the Vedic or the Eastern way the Hindu way to speak of it. Not Hindu, but well, I guess it'd be Hindu. I don't know. The yogi way of speaking of it. I couldn't control it even then or now. When I get these premonitions, when I get these visions, when I get these sights, when I get these channelings, whatever it is, I can't control it. But when it was happening, it was it was still subtle the way I speak of it always. It's still a subtle thing when these things happen. It's not like all of a sudden everything's like gold or black and white and only things that matter are color, or you're seeing these big visions from the heavens. Maybe for some, but not for me. It's not how it was. But the visions I had, whether I was in meditative state or not, sometimes I could be completely awake talking to somebody. This is only during the Kundalini, not now. But during my awakening, these things would happen. It doesn't matter where I was. It would happen like almost like a spidey sense. Like, boom, pay attention to this almost. And be like, well, what the fuck is that? And I would just go home, whatever I was doing. And I was working at this time when this was happening to me, which made it even more weird. It was right at the beginning. But anyways, I would get these things and they would be overwhelming. And now I can still do these things, but it's only if I'm in a meditative state, trance state, whatever. Sometimes it does happen during ritual, but not often. But the point of the story is, unless you are Buddha or do what Buddha does, unless you're a monk, and that's probably why the monks are the way they are. If you're secluded from this society, if you're secluded from our culture, if you're not depending on our monetary system or our hierarchy or whatever you want to call it, okay? If you are no longer working a 9 to 5, if you're off the grid, if you're in a forest surrounded by nature, if you're in nature, which is probably one of the most important parts of what I'm trying to get at. Okay, if you are in nature every day, surrounded by nature, you're not using electricity or surrounded by and getting these Wi-Fi vibes to you, and you're not depending on the monetary system and have the regular day-to-day hustle and stress that goes along with that, okay, then yes, I believe you can have a Kundalini or a regular awakening, and it could be a one and done. Because you are now in tune with nature. You're not depending on going to a job or any other means for money to come to you, all right? You don't need to necessarily use magic for anything. And if you do, you're connected all the time with nature, so it will know what you need before you need it. I believe that would be the only way you could have a Kundalini awakening, or even be a born-again Christian, Christ, all that, be saved. And I think they can be almost the same thing, to be honest. And I know it probably won't be a popular view, but it's what I believe. But the point I'm trying to say is, unless you can get off grid and get away from our regular day-to-day stressful events and not be dependent on the monetary system, then there's no way you can have an awakening happen to you and be self-righteous and have a one and done, because you couldn't be. If you were actually awakened, then the things people say about you wouldn't bug you. If you're actually an awakened being or had this Kundalini effect, then there'd be no reason for you to go online and use a computer and try to promote and sell the idea that you know all and you are so enlightened and follow me and buy my books and this and that because I am an awakened being. There'd be no need to do that. You would know deep down from your insides that there would be no need for that. You would know that everybody's going to have this process happen to them, whether they know it or not. You would know that when they do have this process, it's going to be when they're ready for it. What, baby? Yeah, I'm making you soup. Go wait for it. Go get your bubba. Sorry about that. There'd be no need to have validation seeking of any kind going online and telling people that they're not awakened, or even going on like what I'm doing right now. I'm basically telling the people that had an awakening who are out there still promoting their awakening and say, follow me because I'm awakened. And when I get on there, they talk about the people that say they're awakened and they're not really awakened. Basically kind of what I'm doing now. If they do that, they're not real, you know what I mean? There'd be no reason for this. If I was an awakened being, there'd be no reason for me to come on here and try to explain to you guys that being an awakened person is not a one and done. If I was an awakened, I wouldn't give two fucks about that. I'd be in line with nature. I would have I'd be not vested in the outcome, as Max Egan says, which is why I think I resonate with him, because I think he is, in a manner of speaking, an awakened being. And to me, an awakened being wouldn't say they're an awakened being. You know, and you can say, well, he's going around saying that the world is bad and we need to do this and we need to do that. All right, that's accurate, and you're absolutely right. But he's not promoting that he knows all the answers. He's promoting he just knows what needs to be done. And his only job is to try to wake up people. That's all he's trying to do. And I'm not saying he is, once again, he is off grid and all this, and he just lives from moment to moment. He is nice to people, so people are nice to him. He trades favors. He doesn't trade money. He does keep a little bit of money for when he needs money for certain things, but for the most part, he trades favors. He said he can go anywhere in the country, and there's people that are going to respond to him, let him stay in their house and whatnot. And that's a great way to be, trading favors instead of trading money. So as close as to an awakened being, as somebody who's in our culture and on YouTube and all that, I think Max Egan would be a good example of that. And even Frederick Xavier to a certain extent. You know, he sells his product and all this and that, but he has helped a lot of people through his free stuff on YouTube. I mean, he's helped me. I never bought anything from him, so I've always had to send him good praise and energy and a few other things that I think is something he needs, you know, protection or whatever. And I know I can't technically protect him from whatever people are throwing at him directly or working against him, but if I am able to, if the gods are willing, you know, if Jupiter says, all right, Corey wants to send Frederick Xavier some fucking protection from all the evil that people are trying to do to him. He doesn't have it per se, but because, you know, I owe Corey a favor, well, then I'll do that for Frederick. That's how I look at it anyways. Point is, these people are as awakened as you can possibly be because they understand that it's not a one and done. And they don't go around pretending to be awakened. And that is a sign that somebody is more or less as awakened as you can be. Just go, boo. Just go. She'll follow if she wants to follow. It's because the dog is in here. She's fine. But that's as close as an awakened being as someone could possibly be. It's someone who doesn't go around trying to promote and sell it. It's just like that kid in school who's pretending to be a tough guy. He's going around telling everybody he got in all these fights and hurt all these people so bad, so he actually doesn't have to put on display his fighting skills. It's like the little dog that's barking so loud or showing its teeth. It's doing that to scare off the big dog because he knows he can't beat the big dog. But if he acts tough and is confident, you know, in his skills and in trying to scare people away, you know, the more confidence, the better you can tell a lie, then, you know, the more likely people are to believe you and turn cheek and not fuck with you or whatever. And there's a lot of that. You can do that on the internet well because you're not in front of an actual person. Try to tell someone who's taller, bigger, and that you can tell who's putting off a vibration, a vibe, that they are actually strong. If you get one of these so-called people that are pretending to be tough or pretending to be awake in front of an actual tough person or an actual awakened person, then they're not going to be able to do it right. They're not going to be able to do it at all. They're going to have an excuse for why they can't do it. They're going to have an excuse for not being there. They're just going to dodge it altogether 100%. You know that. Everybody knows that. So it's the same concept. Hey, stop, please. Go see. Change Savannah, change the show because she's not watching whatever's on there. Sorry about that. Daughters are waiting for lunch and the soup's behind me there. I just put all the herbs in there that I think I need, which I'm going to be doing a show on herbs very shortly, on the medical health benefits, the mundane things you can use these herbs for, and then the magical correspondences to planets and all that, which is information you can find out there. But I'll tell you how and when I use these herbs and how they've actually helped me, so that, you know, you're not just hearing, okay, well, basil's got this, it's good for money and for protection. And you can say, well, hi, is it good for money and for protection? Maybe you need protection for money. And, I'll tell you how I actually use basil and how it worked for me, and cinnamon and all these things, and correspondence to bath. The bath episode I did, or the protection bath I did, I told you that I gave you a couple spells from the book, Sorcerer's Secrets, I believe it was. And it says for different specific baths to do specific things. And I say, well, if you only have one for the protection bath, one for the reversal bath, and one for the, I forget the other one was, but there was a third bath in there. If you only have one of each of those, they'll put it all in the same fucking bath and claim what that bath is to you. Now, it works better if you read something, you believe something, and you do what that is. Then, yeah, there's more power behind that. And everybody who's done that for that reason adds the power to what you're doing. That's 100% what all this old history, culture, magic, and stuff has and does. Everybody who's believed any of these correspondence with planets, well, that's why a lot of these things have power. And it's another reason why when you go on the internet and you try to figure out which chakra is which planet, you're going to have different reasons. You're going to have the moon on top of your head with the sun, and then sometimes you'll have the moon as your sacral, right? Or Jupiter as the sacral, which the one thing I can say about that is at least they both have a correspondence to water. Jupiter has correspondence to water, so does the moon, but there's a male and a female aspect of that. Just like with the air, you have Mercury, you have Saturn, and you have the sun. Saturn and the sun are both both males, but one's a negative male, one's positive male, and then you have Mercury, which is neutral. It's got both male and female, and it's between those two guys right there, the masculine and the feminine. And that's why Saturn also corresponds to Earth. That's why Saturn is good in Libra, which is with Venus, because Venus is an Earth element. She's a girl, and that's why Saturn does well in there, because it's the negative of a positive. Air is both positive and negative, just like Earth can be both positive and negative, but its overall tone would be negative. There's negative and positive air, negative positive fire, negative positive water, negative positive earth, and all these elements are within your body. And that's why when you're doing I've already went through this as well, but while you're doing your lesser banishing of the pentagram, or when you get into the more complicated different pentagram rituals, that's why you do the circle one way or you do the circle the other way. That's why you stop in each quarter and do specific things. And that's why you draw the pentagram for whatever element you're invoking and then banishing after you're done. Some people say you have to release the elements after, but if you had to release the elements after, which I do, by the way, I listen to Birch, and he says, whenever you're done, you tell the elements to go because you want them to stay around, and the watchers, you tell them to stay if you will, go if you must, but between us both, there's always going to be perfect love and perfect trust. That's why the watchers stay, and you get them to stay by having a candle lit all the time or as much as possible, because they like fire. They definitely 100% like the fire, and having incense going with that fire as much as you possibly can without breaking your bank or burning your house down, I guess would be the other way. That makes it more suited for spirits to be there. So if you're calling on a specific spirit to help you, or an egregore or whatever, egregores are a little different, but to me, it's something you're making a thought form, and a thought form is a spirit. And spirits, your watchers would be a type of spirit, not exactly the same classification as, whatever demon or spirit could be a lower vibrational entity in your house. We're more suited for smoke and all that. But point is, you do these things for the watchers in a sense, and you can leave a spell or an affirmation or that piece of paper that Earl Nightingale told you to write of what you want. After you said it and you walk around with your pocket when you go to bed at night, you can keep it on. You can lay on it on your head. I think it's a good idea. I already did something about that. I told you I made magic happen by doing, what Edgar Casey slept on his book and he knew everything in the book after, right? His subconscious sees all. So if your subconscious can learn something out of a book, well, by laying on said thing that you want to manifest, you're getting it in your subconscious. So what's in that book is you want something to manifest. Well, by sleeping on that thing every night, you're getting it into your subconscious. You put it in a book, you can just have a piece of paper, put it in your pillowcase, doesn't matter. Your subconscious sees all. It's probably best to have it open, probably on that page, depending on where you are in your transformation. But once again, it's the same concept. So by leaving that on your altar near that candle where the watchers are, most likely, wherever there's fire or light or whatever like that, that kind of light, not a light that will make the entities break apart. They can reassemble, but when you use one of those 60-watt light bulbs rather than an LCD, that can actually get rid of any good or bad entities that are around. But they will reassemble and they can adjust to it because it isn't the sun. But anyways, that's a big tangent off the point that I was initially trying to make. However, I kind of forget the initial fucking point I was trying to make. Son of a bitch. I hate when I fucking do that shit. All right, let me regroup my thoughts here for 1 second. I think I was going on about... all right, so I don't know exactly where I was going with all that, but I'm sure I had a point, and I'm sure it'll come back to me if it was necessary to this. Oh yeah, I went off topic because of the whole chakra thing, and that's probably one of the reasons they make the chakras and the planets different for every person who goes on there. So they have differing ideas, and so people will see that and either say, oh, that's bullshit, so that can't be real, or they see it and they run with it, and then when they meet either the real one or the more truer one, or whatever the thing may be, the one that's been used by more people, especially in their community or within, and they start a faction fight within that little community over some fake shit that someone didn't do any research on, just went to Google pictures, and first picture they saw they agreed with, or the first picture they saw, they just, okay, well, Jupiter's the sacral and the moon and the sun at the top. All right, and then the person tears it down by saying, well, why would your solar plexus be Venus? And the sun, which is solar, be on top of your head, where your crown is. And then you can easily say, well, the sun rays are kind of like the crown of thorns that Christ wore and all that. And they say, okay, no problem, but Mercury is thoughts and all that, and your thoughts come from your brain, so why wouldn't Mercury be your pineal gland instead of the moon? You know what I mean? And why is Mercury at your throat chakra? And you can come up with different reasons and tear this person down just as much as they can prove their point and prove yours is wrong. That's kind of like my whole conspiracy last couple episodes was the fact that you can throw a bunch of fucking facts out there and then fill in the blanks with what you know about that. And the truth is, I don't think there is just one way to look at the planets and chakras. I think, first of all, male and female, and this is not going by negative energy in the body like I just talked about. I have more negative, so I'd have more of a negative flow, which is technically the female flow. But in this sense, I guess I'd be talking more polarity than gender. The law of gender and the law of polarity are different, but they can both use positive and negative. That part is true about that. Go in the living room. Hey, bring this in the living room, baby. Bring your spoons for your soupy in there, okay? Here you go. Bring this in the living room. Go bring that in the living room. 3 spoons. Go bring it in there. So a lot of gender and a lot of polarity are both two different things. However, they can both use positive and negative, plus and minus, push and pull. All right? The woman is the negative and the man is positive. And that's because us men put our penis inside the women. Basically, they accept. We say, hey, you want this inside you? And they either accept or reject us, But if they accept us, well, then we're doing pull my dick enters your vagina. My penis plus your vagina equals us connecting. We're together. Boom. You know what I mean? If you have 2 penises, well, I guess you can use different orifices, different holes. I'm not going to get into that because, whatever. But technically, 2 men can get together. But 2 women technically couldn't, I guess, but it's not doing it all in the same sense. So I'm not going to say that because then people will be like, what do you mean? Because in all honesty, maybe it's because I'm male and I'm heterosexual, but I'd rather watch 2 women any day over 2 men, or even a man and a woman, to be honest. But that's just my personal opinion and just how my eyes were trained and worked, and it's probably just programming, Actually, it's probably not even accurate because anyways, that's something I'm not going to get into. That's TMI, Corey. Jesus. See, about the ADD, I should probably take one of my son's Ritalin pills before I do these episodes. I'd probably be able to stay on topic a little bit better. But anyways, so that being said, that I have more female and negative energy. Here, bring us in the living room. Bring your crackers in there. Your soup's ready, but it's too hot. The point is, I have more female, but what I'm talking about is I think for females, the placement of the moon and Jupiter is going to change. Because in astrology, a woman's Jupiter has to do with, it's too hot right now. It's hot, but I have them all here ready. A woman's Jupiter has to do with the man they're going to marry. And it has a little bit to do with their father and all that. So it would make sense that there's, don't touch, it's hot. Go get Savannah to come in here and help you. So it makes sense that their sacral chakra, first the way they connect with somebody, would be connected with Jupiter. So whether or not that means the male should have Jupiter and their sacral, or she should have, is all up to the person. Is that too hot for you to carry? Are you sure? That might be too hot for you to carry, little girl. Hold on. That's okay. Don't touch either one of those. I think so, yeah. You can take this in here with you to help with the bowl. Don't worry about the third bowl. I'll get to leave that for Owen. Alright, go eat your soupies. Put crackers in there. Make sure she doesn't get a hold of your share of the crackers and put them in your soup, okay, boo? So to me, that's one of the reasons there's a difference with that. And also, the moon has to do with Cancer, and has to do with the male. Not with the male, but Cancer is a mother figure. So could also make the argument why Cancer could be there for the woman instead of the man. So us men could have Jupiter in our sacral, because that's how the woman knows if we're a good father figure or not. If, say, we only use our penis or whatever. However, we are using that organ, or whatever the case may be. I'm not saying if you have Jupiter in Scorpio, that might mean you have a large penis. So if you're one of those men with that, well then, and if you have Saturn there in your chart, if you have Saturn in Scorpio, well then you're going to have a restriction. So, Frederick Xavier says this, and this is not my analysis, because I haven't done enough charts to know, but he says when women have Jupiter in Cancer, they have large breasts, because Cancer, third house is Gemini, which... third house is Gemini, which is your lungs, and Cancer is the next one after that, which is the water one, which is, the breasts. So for the women, the breasts, more liquid, whatever. I'm not going to say liquid, but, well, I guess technically when they're pregnant, lactation does happen out of there, so it kind of makes sense for that to be Cancer. But, inside Gemini, the third one is your lungs, and on the outside, it's women for the breasts. And so that right there could be why the moon or even Venus could be up in your solar plexus, because it's a woman area, woman thing. When Gemini is also there, that's two parts of the body. That's technically where your solar plexus, I guess, would be closest to for the chakra. And we just said, well, Gemini is right there with the lungs on the inside, and we just said Cancer's on the outside. So this is where this stuff happens, and this is where the tree of life, which is basically, your diagram of the two pillars and then your middle pillar in the middle. But that's your tree of life, and that's where this comes in handy. Because if you take that picture, all right, and you put it upside down, and where Saturn is on, when you're looking at it, it would be on the left, the top left, which is the top, and it's the negative pole, okay, which is technically on the right of your body whenever you're doing your Kabbalistic cross. Vergabura would be the top one on the right. I want to say, I hope I got this right. And if not, whatever I'm saying, it's the opposite of it would be the right thing. I guess I'm like the media if I'm saying it wrong. But anyways, that top center where Saturn is, okay, if you take that and you center that in the ground, meaning now your Kabbalistic tree is going to be on an angle, then that's the way the chakra system and the planets kind of work. When I looked at it anyways, because I've looked at them both together. And whenever you look at the tree of life, go around the front, please. When you look at the tree of life, I'm busy, Owen, okay? I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm busy, okay? And your soup's ready, so come in and eat. Thank you, bud. All right, so sorry about that. But when you look at the diagram, okay, whenever you have it, the chakra system generally starts with Saturn. There's not too many that differ on that. There are some, however, but there's not too many that differ on that point. Come here, Owen. It's here. Your spoon should already be in there. Some crackers are already in there. But anyways. But some of them differ on that point of which one's at the bottom. However, Saturn is generally there at the bottom. And whenever you look at the tree of life, he's at the top. And at the bottom, technically Malkuth is the kingdom. And that's generally where the earth is, whenever you picture Malkuth at your feet anyways, you picture your feet half in the ground and half above the ground. And this way it gives you that connection, that grounded connection. So it's kind of reverse. But in the same sense, like I said before, a tree under the ground kind of looks like a tree above the ground. The roots don't have leaves on them, but they're just as bushy, or just like the trees, like especially in wintertime here in Canada, if you look at a tree above the ground, it wouldn't look much different under the ground where the roots are, to be completely honest. On the roots is where the action comes from, the life comes from. But we also get energy from our head. We're getting energy from the ground and energy from our head. That's when you become imbalanced. The positive energies come from the top, the negative energies come from the bottom. The problem most people have in today's day and age is we're getting too many positive ions. I know everybody wants positivity. Positivity is okay and correct according to like Birch and other people. But as soon as you say, I want positive energy, well, then you're getting more positive ions, and that's not necessarily good unless you're getting more negative ions. You can have more positive energy if you want, but you definitely need to neutral or balance it out with negative energy, and negative energy comes from the earth. We know that. We just talked about the earth and water are both negative. That's why to ground yourself, you can use water, put a bunch, if it's the summer, or sorry, if it's the winter time and you live in Canada and you can't put your feet on the ground, well, you take some salt, which is earth, and you put some of that salt in the water, which is also both negative things. You put those two negative energies, two negative elements together, and you put your feet in that, and that'll ground you. That's a great way of grounding you. And you can say, well, salt and water can actually produce electricity, and you're absolutely right. Not when it's stagnant like that, but you can do, there's various experiments on, just YouTube itself, basically. Normally you have to add magnets and some copper wire to there, but essentially you can light a 60-watt light bulb with nothing more than salt, water, copper wire, and 2 magnets, and obviously the light bulb. I've done it, so I can actually attest to that. I've done it multiple times. I've actually did 100-watt light bulbs and more things, and I've used regular salt water, and I put it in a 10-volt battery. It's actually one of the bigger ones. They're something you would use for like a Barbie Jeep or whatever, not a car, but a Barbie Jeep, one of those. And I've actually taken every one of those, emptied the old acid out, filled it with salt water, and charged it with magnets and various different things, but it's essentially just with a bunch of big magnets. And from there, I charged up that salt water in there, and the battery was operational. Now, I'm guessing the reason they use acid is because it stays better longer. The same reason now we're using preservatives and different things to make our food last longer, because initially salt water, but just salt itself was used as a preservative to preserve food, because it actually protected the fruit from going bad. That's why it's a protection thing, but it can also be used, what can cure, what can kill. That which can cure can kill is a great video by Birch, and he talks about salt. A lot of salt removes and makes things neutral, which is why you put it in your water when you're having a bath, or if you want to ground yourself, you put it in there. Salt is a very, very important fucking thing, and it's so simple. The simpler it is, the more powerful it is as well. Frederick Xavier has a video about that, and I suggest listening or watching that too. If I think of it and I have the time, I'll put these links for these videos in the description as well, just so you see what I'm trying to get at. But that's the point. There's the two negative things, and they bring you grounded, and they help you with too many positive ions, and too many positive ions that comes from above. But anyways, so back to this planets and the chakras. To me, it's not going to be the same for every person. If everybody's chart is different, if all these energies are in different places in people, all right, because everybody's head is going to be represented by Aries, and everybody's feet are going to be represented by Pisces, and everything in between. However, your chart is going to start in different places. So therefore, unless your chart starts that way, a good way, if you want to use your birth chart as a physical reading, okay, planets like Mars, and this is as basic as I can make it, and I'm far from a adept or professional or anything like that, okay? But because I still haven't even, my first birth reading I did for free, I still haven't even released it yet, and that's just because I'm too meticulous, and I keep thinking that it needs to be better and better and better and better, and there's certain things I said on there that I truly believe. I haven't taken away anything I've said by my initial reaction, but the point of my birth chart I did for free for, I'm not going to mention her name, but the person who emailed me, one of the people that listened to me, I sent her the initial one that I got from the website, because the website you use for free, once you put in your data, it'll literally give you a free reading on their interpretation for all these things, which is very general, because I don't know if this particular site does it, but most sites will actually want you to buy more information. They'll pretend they have something more they haven't told you, or a secret, and you have to pay to get more. So he talked about the first spring where he is, right? Therefore, if you're on that side of the world, everything is kind of opposite. So right now in spring, they'd be technically entering Aries, whereas we are entering, it's not Scorpio yet, but whatever's before Scorpio, Virgo. I want to say that's bread coming home. It'd be Virgo, and if it's not Virgo right now, anyways, I'm sorry. Well, the further you are away from my sign, the more sketchier these are. I know all the signs and I kind of know where they are, but if I'm not looking at it, this is what I mean. I'm not an adept or professional because I have trouble remembering the signs near that end, I know the last ones, I know the beginning, and I know the structure, and I have a way of remembering it. But the point is, without their birth town or where you were born, those plants could be in different places. Some of them could be closer to you, some could be further to you. It's going to tell you where it was in the sky and in which signs at that time of that day. But depending on where you are, these things will be different, closer to you, further from you, whatever. I don't really know. Well, I've seen the difference through a chart. I'm not going to say it here, but there's a bit of a day of fall for us as the first day of spring and all that, which she mentioned, and I feel bad because I've never even responded or told her anything like that. So if she is listening, I'm very sorry, and I'm going to send it to you hopefully by next Friday or Saturday, or coming Friday or Saturday of this week. And even if I'm not done, I'm just going to give it to you, and then I'll work on the rest that I want to tell you, just so I don't have you hanging. Like I said, it's a free birth chart, so it's not like she's going to complain or anything like that, but it's got to be nerve-wracking sitting at home after I got more information from her, and I haven't done anything with it, I haven't even contacted her with, you know what I mean? That's one of those things where she's got some facts of what I did, and her mind could just go through conclusions. So if she's in a positive plate, then she's going to have positive ideas about what I might be doing. I'm getting better ideas. But if she's in a negative place, then she's going to go through all these negative ideas, right? So if you're watching conspiracy stuff and you're in a positive place, well, it's an easy way or easy assumption to believe that you're going to believe that, well, maybe they're doing this for the greater good. Maybe they're doing this to wake up people. I've come to that conclusion myself. Or just say, it's not even true. They're just trying to scare people, not even worry about it. But if you're in a negative place, or something has just happened to you, or whatever the case may be, then you're going to come to a whole different line of thought. And you can do this experiment very easily by yourself. When you're in a good mood, watch something that has scared you. And if you're in a good mood, depending on what you're watching, it's either going to put you in a bad mood, and in which case you should be careful for stuff like that, because that means it's probably deliberately sending a negative charge to you. Because if something can continuously affect you, then, it's not going to be one of two things. It could be a variety of things. But in my small, learned opinion, and to just speculate quick here, I would say it's either something that is generally supposed to send a charge to you, supposed to help or change people's minds from either bad to good or good to bad, all right? Or something inside of you that happened to you traumatically when you were a child, you are relating to this movie. I'm not saying they're exactly the same, because it could be something completely different. And you could have had this movie on as a kid when something bad happened to you, and every time it comes on, something through your subconscious comes through and tells you, whoa, and it puts you in a negative place. That can happen 100%. But generally, I don't believe that. I don't believe there's just things on TV that are meant to make people do things. A lot of people believe in the stigma or the conspiracy of subliminals and making you do things, that people watch things or play video games, and then one day they flip a switch, government, Illuminati, whoever, that have been programming this stuff, and all of a sudden when they flip that switch, everybody who's watched this something within a certain amount of time is going to go out and kill people, or go out there and just pass on negative emotion to people. And I don't believe that. I believe the programming that happens is through the fact that your subconscious doesn't know the difference between real or fake, and so they put things on the TV that they want you to believe. Meaning they want you to think you need to work a job. They want you to believe you have to shop to be happy. They want you to believe that having the perfect marriage and the perfect house and the perfect husband and the perfect wife, perfect dog, perfect kids is something possible. And if you don't have that, then there's something wrong with you. And therefore, if there's something wrong with you, you're either going to start a drug habit or commit suicide or continuously try to shop yourself into happiness, or keep getting new mortgages or get more money, or, start on antidepressants or whatever the case is. I think that's that's how the programming happens, truly in honesty. I don't believe that they're actually putting specific things in there like codes in a computer program, that the computer program just runs fine. All of a sudden when they hit the switch, the computer can just die on somebody, like they put infecting us with a virus that makes us go and kill people. I don't believe that whatsoever. I don't believe that 1 bit. And, if they try to make that point by saying this person was completely normal, because there was cases of that here in Canada, I want to say 10 years ago now, but on a bus, on one of those, I don't know if it was a Greyhound or something like that, but there was I don't want to sound racist or anything like that, but there was an Asian man, and I believe he was from China, so he'd be a Chinese man, and he was sitting on the bus, and he was a regular guy, normal guy. And then all of a sudden, when the bus started going, he all of a sudden, out of nowhere, got very angry, and he stabbed the person next to him, and I mean, like, chopped him up, like, very brutal. And the story they tried to pass along was that this guy was a normal guy, didn't have any issues, very nice guy, very family-oriented, blah, 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 blah. I mean, this is what I heard, and this could be completely inaccurate, and they tried to paint that program that he had a mental issue, a mental problem, a mental disease, basically, something wrong with his head, and all of a sudden he snapped, and it was over some small trigger that was put inside of his head through whatever means. And so they didn't go out and say it directly, but the picture they were trying to paint was that his mental instability was created from X amount of TV watching and video game playing and whatever else contributed to it. They couldn't come up with anything, and they wouldn't release all the details, and I stopped watching the news around this time. This is before I even got into anything occult, but because of shit like that, I can't handle shit like that, which is not a good thing, which I guess I'll stop beating around the bush, and I'll come right up and say the point of all of this was to tell you that even though when I was in New Age, the New Age community, there's a lot of talk about shadow work. And I knew back then it came from Carl-Jung, I believe is his name. Jung, G-U-N-G. Carl something Jung. I think it's C-G Jung, and it's a J-U-N-G, not G-U-N-G, I believe. Anyways, I have a bunch of his books, and maybe I will put a link on here to get a free PDF if I can do it. And it all depends on how far I have to look and how I have to set up the things. I haven't had any issues with any of the books I tried to put up here first, except for some of the ones I was trying to find that Santos Bonacci was talking about that I said I'd put on here. Some books you just have to really go looking, and sometimes it's a waiting game. But they're basically free somewhere, and you just have to find the right platform, find the right place. And sometimes you have to go to the dark web and all that shit, but somewhere I don't like to go. Not that it exists. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that discussion. I mean, it exists, but it's not. Anyways, so shadow work. And when I was in the New Age, and this is one of the reasons I pulled away from the New Age, because even whenever I started into magic, I kept watching New Agey things, because that's where everything came from. That's where I started on my journey. So I felt like I owed New Age, And, I used to consider Ralph Smart New Age, but I know Ralph Smart, he considers himself an he does alchemy. He's an alchemist, I guess. He talks about different things. And to me, he just doesn't come out and say witchcraft or anything like that, because he doesn't want to be probably put into that category. I think he'd rather stay New Age and all that. But I 100% believe he does some kind of magic and witchcraft or alchemy, and he's one of those people, I believe, like most that do this stuff, that just pick a bunch of stuff that works for them. It ended up giving her information to people I believe are longer, and someone would come out with a video of, and I use this example quite a bit, how to decalcify your pineal gland. And now I know that just that wording itself is dangerous, because the more you see decalcify pineal gland, it's just telling your subconscious, if those words get into there, like I said, words are harder to get in your subconscious, but they can, and that's the point of like NLP, or sorry, not NLP, but analog marking, and those words are like capitals and with parentheses or in a different bold or font or color. It's supposed to stand out to your subconscious, and it's a way of subliminally programming your subconscious mind. So, and 9 times out of 10 of these videos, that those words decalcify, and sometimes decalcify pineal gland, would be in in bold, italics, underline, all that shit, basically making that what stands out. And they can argue all day long that they're doing that just to show how important it is and all that. But if they understood the mind, which I believe some of them did, at least, maybe not all of them, but some of them totally do know that, especially in the area of study they're in, they would know that all that's doing is telling your pineal gland that it's calcified, that you need to decalcify it. But generally it's telling you that your pineal gland is calcified, and that would be doing more harm than it would be doing good. And I've done some of the research on it,